Shalom Havrim, James Trim here, and today I wanted to talk to you about a very special topic, actually, the famous ancient Passover solar eclipse. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about the upcoming solar eclipse, which will coincide closely with the first of Nisan, or the first of Aviv, the religious new year on the Hebrew calendar, as opposed to the so-called secular new year in the fall. There's been a lot of hoopla about it, all kinds of crazy theories prophesying the rapture, the end of the world, I don't know what, dogs and cats together, I don't know. But the reality is, in fact, I saw one person post on Facebook and pose the question, does anybody know how frequently, if ever before, there's been a solar eclipse that coincided with the first of Nisan? So I'm going to answer these questions and a lot more in today's video. Before we get going, I need to remind everybody to please donate to support these videos. We need your financial support now more than ever. We were recently forced to move. The move was, we lost the home we'd been living in for 7 years, and the move was quite expensive. Moving expenses were very high, and rent is about to be due, which is higher rent now to where we had to move. And so that rent will be due in about 9 days, I believe, very soon, and we don't have it. So I need you to please step up and donate to support this work. Okay, also please like these videos, subscribe to this channel, click on that notification bell, and participate. Let us know what you think in the comments, and participate in the discussions in the comments section. All these things help the YouTube algorithm decide what videos to recommend to new viewers, and we definitely want lots of new viewers. I also want to apologize for the audio on the last two the last two videos. As a result of the move, I didn't have the microphone set up properly, and I think we've overcome that, and we'll have better audio for videos, hopefully, from this point forward. Okay, so the question that someone asked is, how often do solar eclipses coincide with the first of Nisan or the first of Aviv? Is that uncommon? And the answer is, it's not uncommon at all. It's not uncommon at all, because if you understand what a solar eclipse is and why it happens, and what a lunar eclipse is and why that happens, then it makes perfect sense that solar eclipses would frequently happen around the first of Nisan. So why does an eclipse happen? First of all, it's an amazing coincidence, if you will, except there are no coincidences. So it's an amazing testimony to the architecture of our Earth, Moon, Sun system, of the universe itself and our place in it, that on our little planet, third planet orbiting our little star, it's a little bit remarkable star, frankly, in our little sector of the galaxy, that we just happen to have one major satellite, the moon. And that moon is of a completely different size from the much, much larger sun in our sky. But they are also very different distances from the Earth, and by a strange coincidence or design, they are appear to be approximately the same size from the Earth. and that makes possible both solar and lunar eclipses. Now, a solar eclipse takes place when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun and blocks the sunlight. When it exactly coincides with the circle of the sun and blocks out the sun entirely, that's a total solar eclipse. That total solar eclipse will be passing through my area April 8th here in Dallas-Fort Worth, where I live. We will have totality here. A lot of you will see different phases of the eclipse. Some of you won't get totality. Most of you won't get totality, but because totality is only about a band about 108 to 122 miles wide. If you're not in that little band, you won't get totality. You'll see different levels of eclipse. I've seen maps, by the way, that are being distributed on the internet showing a whole bunch of towns, like 9 towns called Nineveh, that were supposedly in the path of the eclipse. But if you look at the actual map, several of them are not in the totality band. And of course, there are dozens of towns called Nineveh in the United States. So again, not very special. So let's think about a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. And of course, a lunar eclipse takes place when the Earth blocks comes between the moon and the sun, and therefore the Earth's shadow covers the moon. So let's kind of help you imagine this. This is a globe of the Earth. And flat earthers out there will be probably putting all kinds of messages or whatever. But here's a globe. This was my father's globe that he got during college. When he went to college after World War II, he got out after the war, and he went to college on the GI Bill, and he bought himself this globe for college, and it was in my father's study when I was growing up, and it's in my study now. It's usually up on top of that bookshelf. So this is the Earth. Okay, put this right here for the moment. This is the moon, okay? And this is a globe of the moon I've had since I was a child. When I was growing up, the lunar missions were a big deal, and they'll set off another bunch of conspiracy people. But the lunar landings were taking place, and there was a lot of excitement about the moon. And during that excitement, lunar globes were a thing, and I got one of these because I was very much into astronomy. Now this is probably a little bit not quite to scale to the globe. I think the moon is actually smaller, relatively smaller. And of course we're going to use this for the sun, but obviously way out of scale because the sun is actually far bigger than the moon and the Earth. But just so we can kind of see them in order. So a lunar eclipse takes place when knocking over that microphone. So this is on the very edge of my desk. You can't see it, but the desk actually ends right here where the microphone is. So there's not much room for these items. So let's put they're not completely in view. I'll see if I can tilt things so you can see them better. So here they are. This one actually stays up by itself, and then the sun. So the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, and thus the shadow of the moon covers all or part of the moon, and that's a lunar eclipse. A full moon also takes place when the items are in this order. It's just that the Earth isn't actually blocking the sunlight, but the general order is like this, so that the moon is full. Because if the moon is over here, the sun is over here, or depending on where the moon is in its orbit around the Earth, it has different phases, and we'll see different parts of the moon lit up by the sun. But in this order, there's always a full moon. So when there is a lunar eclipse always takes place during a full moon. So what else always takes place during a full moon? Or roundabouts, within 24 hours, depending on exactly how the calendar falls, Passover takes place during a full moon, because the ancient Hebrews had a lunar solar calendar with lunar months, and the Passover being the 14th of Nisan, the evening of the 14th of Nisan, then going into the 15th through the 21st, always kicks off right about the time of a full moon, within hours of a full moon, and usually during a full moon. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because some of you may recall a few years ago there was a lot of hoopla about Passover eclipses, and that lunar eclipses bunched around each other during the time of Passover, or on Passover. And the Passover lunar eclipse, there was a huge deal about it, like this is something unusual. But anybody that understands basic astronomy realizes that lunar eclipses are predisposed to happening during Passover, and certainly predisposed on happening right around the middle of a lunar month, and would say never happen at the beginning of lunar month. In other words, if we had a lunar eclipse at the 1st of Nisan, that would be news. So now we have the opposite happening. We have a solar eclipse happening. So when you have a solar eclipse happen, you have the Earth right here, you have the moon right here, and the sun out way off of the distance over here, and the Earth, the moon's shadow falls upon the Earth, and prospectively, someone watching will see the moon block the sun. Okay. This always happens during a new moon, just like the other one always happens during a full moon. So a lunar eclipse always happens during a full moon, and a solar eclipse always happens and can only happen during a new moon. Does that make sense? Okay. Because a new moon is always when the moon is over here and the far side of the moon is lit up, but the near side of the moon is dark and we can't see it. Okay? Something else always happens around the time of a new moon. That is the first day of a lunar month. For example, the first day of Nisan. So, every solar eclipse always takes place right around the first day of a lunar month. And that means approximately 1/12 of all solar eclipses take place around the 1st of Nisan. So there is nothing amazing about the fact that a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse, is happening at around the 1st of Nisan. Just like was nothing especially amazing about the fact that a lunar eclipse was taking place around Passover. There is nothing unusual about this. Okay? In fact, what would be unusual is if a solar eclipse was taking place during Passover, or a lunar eclipse was taking place around the 1st of Nisan. That's impossible. That would be miraculous. That would be a great sign and wonder in the sky. But a solar eclipse happening during the first of Nisan is not a sign of anything. It's normal. It's what has to happen. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be the first of Nisan. It could be the first of another month. But if it's anywhere around that time, it's got to be the first of Nisan or within 24 hours of the first of Nisan. Vice versa, if it's a lunar eclipse, it's got to happen around Passover or the middle of another lunar month. But 1/12 of lunar eclipses happen around Passover. Roughly 1/12, okay? And roughly 1/12 of solar eclipses happen around the first of a lunar month, okay? So half of lunar eclipses take place around the middle of a lunar month, and a 12th of solar eclipses happen around the middle of a lunar month, and approximately a 12th of solar eclipses happen around the first of Nisan. Sorry, specifically Nisan, not just they all. We say this one more time because I think I'm getting said maybe a little bit wrong. Let me say this, articulate this exactly correctly. All solar eclipses take place around the first of a lunar month. All lunar eclipses take place around the middle of a lunar month. Approximately 1/12 of solar eclipses take place around the first of Nisan, which is also known as the first of Aviv, and approximately 1/12 of lunar eclipses take place around the 14th of Nisan or around Passover. Okay? Very clear. Very simple stuff. If something else happened, that would be miraculous. That would be a great sign in the heavens. But a lunar eclipse happening during Passover is no sign in the heavens. It's normal. And a solar eclipse happening around the first of Nisan or the first of Aviv is not a sign in the heaven. It's the heavens doing what is perfectly normal. Don't fall for the hype. And there's a reason that this hype is damaging. It's damaging because there are real signs in the heavens. There are real miraculous events. And if you don't understand the basic astronomy of something as simple as this, you will miss them. So let me tell you, remember I said, if a solar eclipse happened, if a lunar eclipse happened around the first of Nisan, that would be a miracle. And if a solar eclipse happened during Passover, that would be a miracle. That is astronomically impossible because the sun, moon, and earth are lined up in exactly the wrong order at Passover for a solar eclipse to happen. So now I want to tell you about a miraculous event, the Passover solar eclipse. You're saying, what? You just said that was impossible. Yep, that is impossible. And yet, there is a historical record of such an event taking place. And fortunately for us, a secular writer who was writing in the year 52 CE, or 52 AD, about 20 years after the death of Yeshua, about 20 years after the crucifixion of Yeshua, this guy named Thallus was writing. He was a secular writer, and he was trying to dismiss the event of Yeshua's crucifixion where it was said that the earth went dark. And in his explanation of why the earth went dark at the time of the crucifixion of Yeshua, which, by the way, was at Passover, and we know this from not only the so-called New Testament, but even the Talmud. Okay, so that event took place at Passover. It took place about 20 years. We could debate about the exact year, but it took place about 20 years before Thallus wrote, which means that a lot of people were still alive that remembered that event. Those of you that are my age, that are in their 50s, can clearly remember things that were 20 years ago. It's not, some of it seems like it was yesterday to us, okay? So, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I remember that was when I went to Florida to go speak at a big conference in Florida. And the whole family made a trip out to Florida, and we saw things, and it seems, much of that trip seems like yesterday to me, but it was 20 years ago. The Great Torah Debate, which you can find in one of the first video uploaded to this channel, was 20 years ago, 2004. Okay, so Thallus writes this, trying to disprove the miraculous events that took place at the crucifixion of Yeshua. He says there were no records of earthquakes or darkness on the day purported as the day of his crucifixion. There was no tearing of the temple veil recorded anywhere in history. Oh, that's what, I'm sorry, wrong quote. This is what and I saw an anti-missionary write on Facebook. There were no records of earthquakes or darkness on the day purported as the day of his crucifixion. No tearing of the temple veil recorded anywhere in history. In fact, that's not true. Thallus, in 52 CE, trying to explain away the darkness that took place at the time Yeshua was crucified, said this darkness was an eclipse of the sun. I quote, "This darkness was an eclipse of the sun." So 20 years after the death of Yeshua, it was well known that there had been darkness over Jerusalem at the time of the death of Yeshua. It was something that had to be explained away, not dismissed that never happened, but that a skeptic, a complete non-believer, would have to come up with an explanation for. And he said there was an eclipse that day. There was an eclipse, a solar eclipse. And that's why there was darkness. It was a solar eclipse. Thallus didn't realize it, but by writing within the lifetime of the events themselves that there had been a solar eclipse that cast darkness on Jerusalem on the day of Yeshua's crucifixion, at the very time of Yeshua's crucifixion, was one of the greatest historical documentations of a miracle, because as a matter of historical record, Yeshua was crucified during Passover, at the beginning of Passover, and we know as a matter of astronomical fact that a solar eclipse absolutely positively cannot happen during Passover. Can't even happen anywhere within 2 weeks of Passover. I mean, it would have to be about 2 weeks from Passover. A lunar eclipse could take place, but that wouldn't make things dark. A solar eclipse took place on Passover in the middle of the month during a full moon when Yeshua was crucified, and this is a matter of history as recorded by secular historian Thallus, trying to explain away the miraculous darkness that took place at the time of Yeshua's crucifixion. Now, there's also historical evidence of the earthquake and the tearing of the temple veil, but we'll discuss that in another video in the future. Today, because of all the hype that's going around a solar eclipse, oh, there's a solar eclipse happening during the 1st of Nisan. It's actually off from the first, around the 1st of Nisan. Is all this hype is a total hoax, because it would be actually unusual, even miraculous, for a solar eclipse to happen sometime nowhere near the 1st of a month. A solar eclipse has to happen around the 1st of a lunar month. All right, so don't get caught up in the hype. Don't buy all this craziness. A solar eclipse at the 1st of a month, of a lunar month, is absolutely normal and can't happen any other time of the month. Must happen around the 1st of a lunar month. All right. as they can't, through a miraculous solar eclipse once happened during the crucifixion of Yeshua in the middle of the month, which was astronomically impossible. That was a sign in the heavens. All right, just remind you to please donate to support these videos. We need your financial support. For those that don't know, my wife is chronically ill, suffers from chronic pain, and is disabled, and I'm her caretaker. We need your help. You're also financing these videos, the research, and all the materials that we publish online for free, supported by donors like you. All right, and please like this video. Click the subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. Let us know what you think of this video in the comments section, and participate in the discussions in the comments. Share these videos on Facebook, on Twitter, in Facebook groups where they are relevant, and on your personal Facebook page and all kinds of social media. Email them to your friends and so on. And until next time, everybody, shalom.